Entrepreneurship and innovation as drivers in higher education. The panelists are Anita Null, Chief Director, Innovation and Commercialization at Stellenbosch University. Professor Thea van der Westhuizen, Academic Leader, High Impact Community Engagement and Internationalization at the College of Law and Management Studies, University of KwaZulu-Natal. Dr. Mahendra Sharma, Pro-Chancellor at Ganpat University. And the moderator is Fifi Peters, Senior Anchor at CNBC Africa.
As you do know, small and medium enterprises are the backbone of African economies. In fact, most economies all over the world. They power job creation, they drive grassroots innovation, and also shape the continent's future. With graduate unemployment here rising, though, as the traditional jobs market shrinks from technological innovation, the urgency to transform higher education into a launchpad for entrepreneurship has never been greater. So in the next 45 minutes or so, we'll explore how universities can reinvent themselves by reimagining curricula, build innovation hubs, and forge industry partnerships to become true incubators of startups that create the next generation of job creators. Anita, allow me to begin with you. Maybe just by way of introduction, tell us a little bit more about the work that is being done at Innovus and how the Stellenbosch launch lab, as it were, goes about doing its business.
Yes, we initially started with the tech transfer office, but we realized that on our campus there's a big gap in terms of servicing those entrepreneurs from the student community who are not using university technology. So we started a few years ago with a competition. It was just an idea competition, and it became so popular that in the end we actually had to set up an incubator where we are now not only looking after student entrepreneurs but also our own staff members and postgraduate students starting businesses with the university, with research that emanates from the university, and then also alumni and any entrepreneur from outside the university can also participate. So we offer a lot of courses and programs to help those entrepreneurs first understand who they are as an entrepreneur and how they can be supported. So we've seen quite a number of interesting student ventures emanating from that, and those students are actually now sponsoring some of the events that we host at the launch lab.
Sure. And perhaps, Anita, as a follow-up, from your experience, what does it take, or what will it take for universities to transition from the traditional knowledge hubs as they are known to more innovative hubs that breed a lot more entrepreneurs, as is happening in the case at Stellenbosch?
Well, the day that we started a physical facility, that we opened it and there was good coffee, a nice vibe, not university-ish, that is when we actually saw a big change in paradigm shift on our campus. So what to do? I would say start small. Just have a space on your campus where you have someone who talks about entrepreneurship and support students and lead them there, and just offer some basic courses. It doesn't cost a lot, but we must understand universities are such wonderful places because the brightest young minds come to these universities and they stay there for 3 to 5 years. And we have a very short space in which we can actually transform their minds and change them instead of being good employees, as our universities normally aim to have students, but to good employers. So instead of trying to earn a good salary, why don't you start paying a good salary? So I think it's a wonderful opportunity to allow those students to start businesses in a safe manner on the campus.
Sure. One cannot underestimate the importance that good coffee and a good vibe does in breeding entrepreneurship. I'm told that the likes of Starbucks are not punting out that particular coffee brand, but Starbucks has been the vibe setting for the creation of quite a number of innovative ideas that have become successful. in this society or current day and time, just showcasing the importance of some good stimulants in nurturing those ideas. But Professor Thea, let me just come to you, because you have argued for a long time that entrepreneurship should be embedded across all disciplines. But can I just ask you what that looks like in practice in terms of entrepreneurship for a law student, entrepreneurship for an engineer, entrepreneurship at a humanities level, if you could just explain that.
Thank you so much. And to be clear on this, for the way the future world of work is going, the solution might not be to add extra core modules or to add extra electives, but every module that one offers in a formal curricular space can include elements to boost the entrepreneurial heart set and mindset. Now, when I speak about boost the entrepreneurial heart set, that's things that happen within us, deep within. So those are things that can inspire the students not only to be entrepreneurial, but also think innovative. Innovative is where new ideas are being born. And then when we boost in every module elements of entrepreneurial mindset, those are things under the term individual entrepreneurial orientation that can help one think to take risks, to be proactive, and how to spark self-innovation. So those things doesn't necessarily need to require modules or programs to go through new quality assurance programs or re-looked at central government side. Those are things that can be embedded to teach one how to develop your own view and your own skill competencies for the future world of work. What can be explored with that, and especially when we look at formal modules and adding on extra components that boost entrepreneurial mindset, that can be linked to things that's fun, like micro-credentials. Micro-credentials is a component that can be issued for a certain very short skill that is student-based. And it can be specific to the industry that you study, whether it's engineering or medicine or law or arts, sports. But if you have those self-enabling elements incorporated, so and I think that the debate in scholarship and amongst researchers is still ongoing and not conclusive. Shall we put more electives? Shall we put more core modules? Or shall we just work with what we have and enable one? Now, linking to what Anita is saying and that thing of transformation, there's a really amazing definition from Canadian scholars, Ficino Fallon, that I like for the word transformation when it comes to boosting youth entrepreneurial mindset within higher education. And they define this word transformation as growth in developmental maturity. So if we look at what we have in our curricula, and we can add these components to grow in developmental maturity towards self-enabling for the future world of work, that might be a good step. And then to bind that together, there's some platforms. For example, in South Africa, we've got EDI, Entrepreneurship Development and Higher Education Program. This is embedded in USAF, University South Africa, which link into the Department of Higher Education and Training. And it's a nationwide program that help to develop leadership in universities, for universities to think more entrepreneurial, for academia to think how can we indoctrinate our research to incorporate more, bring it from research to market, and then our undergrad students to enable this thing of transformation, developing growth in developmental maturity. And then the last thing that it is focusing on is communities of practice for student entrepreneurs. Same when we look at curricular transformation. So we've got EDI on the national charter. We've got international organizations like the British Council, who's making platforms like the Innovation for African Universities Communities of Practice available for universities throughout South Africa in 2 tiers, for academia, for staff, as well as for students.
Sure.
And becoming part of these communities of practice, there's also an extracurricular component where staff and students can learn and engage to help with the curricular components. So back to the question on what we can do within the higher education sphere around program and module development, maybe it's a 2-tier component where we look at what we're formerly offering, as well as what we are offering extracurricular.
Sure.
And combine these 2 elements so that, and maybe the combination can be through your graduate qualification plus micro-credentials. So when you leave the university, either at an undergrad level or a postgraduate level, you've got this sense of, I've got my qualification, but I've also been extracurricularly prepped for what the future world of work is offering me.
Sure. And I appreciate what you're saying about not necessarily reinventing the wheel, not necessarily introducing entirely new models or disciplines within the curricula, but rather add-ons to the likes of a law, add-ons to the likes of an engineering, or add-ons to the likes of humanities in terms of the entrepreneurial skill set and knowledge set that will be required within those disciplines. But I'd also like to understand whether it has been your experience that there's a little bit of resistance, maybe from the teachers themselves, who could regard these entrepreneurial disciplines as outside their traditional realms of teaching. Or do you think that there is an appreciation right now of the urgency that is required, just given the state of the economy and the way that the world of work is being changed by the technological shifts?
My experience and interactions in the communities of practice specifically is very much an awareness from the academe and an appreciation on this word of transformation, growth in developmental maturity, because the statistics are there. 10 to 12 million young people are entering the labor market in Africa every year. But within that, only 3 million formal jobs are created each year within the continent. So the statistics are there, and there's very much an appreciation of the how to and the what next.
Sure.
The debates still exist how to formally embed these elements. But there's a big shift within the academic sector and in these communities of practice amongst university lecturers and professors, the ones that need to bring the education to the classroom, on how we can shift the traditional classroom approaches. There was a massive disruption in 2020. I don't want to mention the COVID word because it's redundant, but that necessitated the academe to rethink and reapproach the way they to learning and teaching our students.
Okay.
So the willingness and appreciation amongst academe at universities, and especially from university leadership, and it's evident if you look at University South Africa and EDI, that brings all 26 public universities in South Africa together. There's leadership strategy groups that speak about the world of work. There's communities of practice where the researchers and the lecturers get together and they get themselves upskilled and they look at best practice amongst themselves throughout South Africa and internationally on what has been done. Okay. So I'm very positive and hopeful for academia in not bringing only entrepreneurship education to our students, but also a sense on how can we go beyond entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Into innovation, where we're in that space where we're not only replicating, but also can generate, not imitating, but generate. And
Okay.
for the future of Africa, we need these problem-solving, innovative, idea-generating minds that's coming through our higher education, coming from our graduates.
Sure, and
perhaps
Professor
idea.
Thea, allow me to jump in because you've actually just made a really good point there in terms of universities themselves moving beyond entrepreneurship into the realm of innovation. And I want to double click on that in just a short while, but perhaps just to bring Professor Sharma into the conversation right now. So maybe just looking at the continent from the outside in, lessons that can be learned and shared from the experience at Ganpat University, just given the fact that we are talking about the global south here. And Professor Thea did mention the importance of universities themselves also thinking more entrepreneurially in being teachers of entrepreneurship, as it were. And I'd like to draw from your experience and all the innovation that you have brought to Ganpat University that has been seen and recognized by industry, just given the awards of Edupreneur of the Year that you have received. So in practical terms, what does a university or an institution thinking entrepreneurially look like, sir, and how does that translate and spill over to students doing the same?
This is a very good question. The thing is that to have an entrepreneurial ecosystem in a university, there is a continuous thought process right from the board to the last man of the organization. Universities should have entrepreneurship policies related to faculties also. People who are engaged in the business of generation of new knowledge and dissemination of knowledge. So there has to be a policy. At Ganpat University, we allow faculties also to create their startups. And being a very large multidisciplinary university, we have a student startup and innovation policy in place since 2015. And we have endowments as well as we have fundings lined up from industry as well as from the government, both the state government and the central government. Right now, we are incubating 258 startups. And out of those 258 startups, which range from health tech to fintech to edtech, you can agri-tech, we have around 157 which are industry scale startups, and 3 will become unicorn next year. So this is the scale of the work we are doing. We handpick problems from the industry directly. Like in my backyard, there are the whole automobile manufacturing huge units are there, 30 kilometers on the backyard of my university. Suzuki Motors, Tata Motors, Ford Motors, Honda, everybody is there. Their vendors are there. We speak to them and there is monthly discussions on the problems they are facing. And those problem statements are brought and Ideathon is organized around the industry's problems. So we are in a way trying to solve the industry's problem as well as the economy's problem. And this readily also helps curate solutions and enables the industry and the economy. So this is how each of our startup is based on interaction with the industry and at the same time what the challenges the country is facing and what challenges the state economy is facing. So we try to build around those problems. I can tell you that during the Kargil war, India-Pakistan war, we were using Bofors guns and those Bofors guns were not working. And my students, they developed a sensor based along with the company and it changed the face of the war. And one of my group of students, they developed unmanned gun which was given the National Best Research Award, as well as it was then taken up by Ministry of Defense. And we are trying to come out with practical solutions. And it's from health tech, if I talk about, the group of biomedical students along with the students from the health domain, they come up with a non-invasive way of detecting your whole blood profile. They can take a snapshot of your retina. They have already reached almost 90% of perfection and they can give you your whole blood report. So there is no need for a diabetic patient to go for blood to be given every time. So all those kinds of innovations, which is new to the market, which is new to the world, that comes from the universities. And that can only happen If we curate an incubation center, we curate a mindset which is enabling it. So we have the World of Startup Talk Series, we have the World of Entrepreneurship Talk Series, we have Center for Entrepreneurship, which also delivers MBA, Innovation, Entrepreneurship and Venture Development to exclusively to startup founders and co-founders. Because we realized at the university level that out of there are only 2% startups are successful. They go to the third level. From the idea incubation to prototype development, 98% they vanish. The only reason is not having enough business acumen and the know-how and hand-holding. So we launched this program exclusively for startup founders and co-founders. So we saw to it that they were educated in the business part of it. And every module was engagement with the industry leaders trying to address the solutions. Suppose if there is a module on marketing, they are interacting with marketing best brains to discuss what startup, the product they have, the service they have, and what is this areas they are facing challenges into.
Sure.
So we have gone into grassroots of this, and we understand that entrepreneurship education is also a boon to those who are seeking employment. Because every company is trying to seek an individual in a changed technological scenario. A multitasker guy who understands the business is more suitable for them than the one who has to be educated and thinks about the outcome of what he is doing. So entrepreneurship education is mandatory for all the 17,000 students studying at Ganpati University in 125 programs. So from 2 credits to 14 credits, since the time they join to the time they leave, they can take pick and mix. It's all pick and mix model. So they can take based on their aptitude. And being a multidisciplinary university, a student can find a healthcare student, they can find an engineering student, an architect, a design, a management, a social science, a humanities students. They can create cross groups. And over the period of time, we have become a very large incubation center within the state of Gujarat and in the country. So I feel that if entrepreneurship is understood in its right spirit, right at the level of the board, and it is brought down to the last man in the organization, it would be done properly and perfectly. So it has to be understood, appreciated, and handholded properly. So this is what I have to share with you, Jill.
And it's quite impressive what you have shared with us so far. So specifically what has been happening at your incubator startup hub since 2015 when you introduced the model. I mean, you told us about some 250 startups that you've got currently under incubation. You said that 157 or so are at industry scale startups. Correct me there if I'm wrong, but you even mentioned the possibility of 3 IPOs, which is very, very impressive. But my question then to you is that in these students coming up with these ideas for these businesses across sectors, how do you as an institution, so how do you decide which ideas have the potential to be commercialized? If you can just take us through that process.
Sure. We have a 3-layer screening process. The first layer of screening, that is idea screening, which is done through a very strong committee, which includes bankers, financial institution. They include industry experts, and they include research experts and the professors. So it's a combination, cross combination of these 4 different important stakeholders in the journey of startups. So the idea screening is done, the idea is presented, and then they are given sufficient inputs into if the idea is new to the world or is new to the market, or is just they have Googled it and they have found out somewhere it is being done and they are trying to copy it. We just figure it out, and there is a discussion on how it can be a novel one. They are given advice. If an idea is good enough, and it has been meticulously researched, and we already put on through our portals inside the list of problem statements which various companies and sectors are facing. We have almost 5,000 plus problem statements. So if they have handpicked it from there and they're trying to create a solution, we know that they are in the right direction. It will be new to the market and it will be new to the world. But if they have come on their own, they are screened through it, they are given the advice, and then we give them the seed money. There is a government scheme where we give them a seed money to develop the idea. In Indian rupees, it is 500,000 rupees that is given to them. And they work on the incubation, prototyping of that idea. And after that prototyping has been done, it comes to the next level of screening. And where the product that they have developed is put to real-time industry test. And then this is where the real experts join in. And then the whole concept of what kind of resources they will need to go to the next level of it, how it is going to become a full business model around it, or it is simply a research area where they have developed something and should go for a patent, that decision is taken.
Sure.
And once that level is crossed and the student, the group of students, along with the mentors, because they are allocated the mentors, industry mentors, they start working, and even they go to the industries and they start working. And at this point, we also inject is an important element is we allow them to showcase this to different kind of funding agencies. So they start talking to them. And if any of those funding agencies, they get interested, they start mentoring as well as participating with the seed money. And then it goes to the third level. And this is where the whole concept is fully incubated and is ready to be registered as a business venture. And then they can start working as a company. And meanwhile, this journey is going on. The advice is continuously given to them on what kind of technology, what kind of manpower, how they should organize. So in the incubation center, they have been given an office space. They get a continuous mentoring through the mentors within the incubation center. They have access to all the labs, workshops within the university and allied organization within the companies, as well as the research institutions outside the university also. So we give them hand to hand the whole process. So see to it that every idea that actually is going through the screening committee at the first stage sees as a final product at the end of the day. So this calls for a very conscious effort, and the journey is from 1 year to 3 years, depending on the nature, the complexity of the idea, and how it can be done. We even facilitate cross-border startups. We have tie-ups in Canada, in Middle East, in Australia. We allow them to, because some ideas may be new to the Indian market and premature. Sure. They may not work out for the Indian conditions. So they need to be hand-holded to go cross borders. And we have tie-up with foreign universities. We also work with institutions outside India also to give them the opportunity of getting those hand-holding coming from foreign countries also, with foreign professors also. So it's an end-to-end whole process and is a very detailed methodology, ensuring we after a decade we have learned a lot to ensure that each idea becomes a successful one at the end of the day. We try to see that any kind of failure is arrested with right kind of input at any point of time.
Sure. I think that's really pretty impressive, and lots of learnings that can be drawn from your decade of experience in this area. Anita, just maybe reflecting on you, I mean, what do you think about what is happening at Gampat University, and do you at this stage have any similar or minded stories to share by way of what the Launch Lab has been able to achieve at Stellenbosch University so far in terms of maybe bringing out 1, 2 or 3 successful businesses to market?
Yes, indeed. What I love about what Mahendra said is the very close connection with industry. The fact that you have so many companies and factories basically on your doorstep. So it makes it easy for industry to cross that border into the university and to ask for help. And it also makes the university much more relevant to industry because they're also close and they know probably the industries very well. And that multidisciplinary aspect is as important because now you bring together solutions or solution providers from across the university in a number of disciplines. So I think that is a fantastic recipe. Universities can't act as silos in industry. They get their funding from industry, and they are supposed to make life better, to make our planet better. So that is wonderful. What we have seen in the Launch Lab is also quite similar to something Dr. Sharma said. We have a company, we have a lot of research in terms of space technology. So I think our university was involved in building the first satellite for Africa and the second. So there's a lot of information and there's a lot of research going on, but there's not a big market in South Africa for the outcomes of this research. So we struggled with getting that out, and we started a small company. It was a professor and 5 of their students who started a small company called CubeSpace, and they focus on building those components of satellites that control the satellite. So they first started by offering it to other universities and on a very small scale. They're called nano satellites. It's 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, up until the size of a shoebox. They became highly successful because of the good price they could offer it. And now they're a global leader in the small and medium size industry. They are based here in South Africa, where they can service the market very well, but where they are still close enough to the university, from whom they get more intellectual property and also talent, because students come to that professor. They want to study under him because they know this professor's research is actually relevant and can do something in industry. And the company pays bursaries to the students, and so they gain both talent as well as technology from this interaction with the university. And what we have also seen is, in the past couple of years, it actually led to a number of small companies in the satellite industry, very close to each other here, and they don't have clients here. They literally just export their products. So sure. I think that sets a good example as well, where you can actually benefit from that closeness with industry in the one instance, or create your own industry in another instance.
No, absolutely. And all the best, I mean, to infinity and beyond, in terms of some of the innovations that are coming out in a nascent but we know important sector for the future, that is the space. But Professor Thea, maybe to bring you in here, what I like about what has been shared so far is the importance of that partnership between industry and academia. And one has to argue perhaps if there is room to bring in industry a lot more in the classrooms, in the universities, in trying to not only bridge the skills gap, but also imparting these practical entrepreneurial skills. But I want to talk to you also about the issue of funding, because, okay, so fantastic, you have university students that come up with these fantastic ideas. You've done your DD, as Dr. Sharma did allude to, and you see that these ideas are not copy and pasted or imported from some LLM model elsewhere, but they're original ideas that can commercialize and scale. But to commercialize and scale, what a lot of entrepreneurs who are outside of the university institutions talk about is the challenge of access to funding. So maybe your thoughts here, Professor Thea, in terms of how universities can better link some of these incubators within these startup hubs that you're running to capital, either from the likes of investors, from the venture capitalists, from angel networks, in your view?
Thank you so much. And we always speak about this thing about linking to industry, but do we closely look as institutes on who is industry? Who's that people out there? And perhaps when we look at the statistics, in sub-Saharan Africa, industry possibly also include the informal sector. And if we look at statistics, over 85% of jobs in sub-Saharan Africa are in the informal sector. Countries like Benin and Togo got 95% of the jobs in the informal sector. So who's the industry and who are we going to link our students to? In South Africa, universities are doing well through government and university collaborations, through certain types of competitions. For example, at the moment with EDI, there's an innovation challenge with prize money of 5 million rand. A winning student can take 500,000 rand to boost the startup of the business. There's a current opportunity from the British Council, £20,000. Teams of 5 students come up with innovation and enter the competition. From universities, there's collaborations with people paying their skills development levies, their tax, and that's compliant, and see how they can incorporate the skills development levy tax rebates with the organization that is compliant and the university to help to further upskill. And then the question really is the mindset of, we want funding. If we look at many of the successful entrepreneurs coming from these university competitions, these are often students that had the innovative approach to think, how can we come up with self-funding? Research from Rian Steenberg from Stellenbosch showed if these young entrepreneurs, or if the youth have 5 people around them to help them start up their dream or their idea, and perhaps of scaling up, first scale down, to see how we can start up and reach our dream without reaching out to somebody to supply us with funds, but perhaps reach out to 5 people within our own network that can help us with support, that can help us with marketing, social media, that can help us with that inner oomph, that can drive us with energy, and perhaps connect us with others even further. So I'm in 2 minds on how to respond to this, on what universities need to do to further enable funding opportunities. Perhaps we should ask ourselves to how we can rethink the funding model, and how we can think towards a way that we can approach to start up and scale up with what we have within our own framework. And then if we look at the concept of funding, and that so many of the opportunities so many of the entrepreneurial startup creations lies within the informal economy, and then from government level, what there is in terms of policy, perhaps instead of penalizing the informal startups, perhaps create from a policy level a more supporting supporting environment,
Sure.
where the informal economy is rather supported and not penalized.
Sure. So you are touching on the area of inclusivity, which is probably a good one for us to start wrapping up the conversation in the wake of, leave no one behind, as we try and do our best to attain any form of the Sustainable Development Goals. But Dr. Sharma, to bring you in here in terms of picking up on the point on inclusivity, because the question then becomes, so how do universities ensure that they are successful in driving some of these entrepreneurial initiatives, but initiatives that not only serve students or elite students, but initiatives so that can also potentially expand access and opportunity for underrepresented groups, particularly the groups that Professor Thea did speak about, or the market that Professor Thea spoke about in terms of the informal sector, which we do know drives quite a bulk of the business activity in the global south, sir.
It is a very good question. It is not only about the underprivileged groups, it is also about the gender. If I look at the startups which are happening in Indian condition, there are out of 10, there are 2 startups which are led by women. So how do we increase the startups from women? How do we promote more girls to take up the startups? So that is something which at the university, at the government level here, there are special incentive schemes, and there are support ecosystem which has been curated to handhold them to take up entrepreneurship. As far as underprivileged groups are concerned, we have boot camps We regularly organize with the patronage from the industry, with the patronage from the government of Gujarat, the government of India, a lot of boot camps and training programs, entrepreneurship training programs for underprivileged groups. And there are special through the Ministry of Minorities, Ministry of reserved categories. We try to have a lot of special funding to handhold them. And at the university, we try to see that whenever there are startup ideas and others are incubated, and if there is a group which is coming from a reserved category or an underprivileged group, we try to mix them with a group of students who have a similar idea, and we try to create a network within them so that they pursue the same idea together. So we have curated all these types of policies and ecosystem around it so that they, whosoever, irrespective of what background they come from, they get a similar handholding and the platform. And I'm really, I can tell you that Government of India today and Government of Gujarat, they are coming forward like anything in supporting those aspects of the students community who otherwise would be devoid of this great opportunity. As a country, we are the 5th largest economy of the world. We are moving towards becoming the 3rd largest economy, and we are going towards self-reliant, and there is tremendous push from the government, from the various agencies to handhold and curate Make in India, Made in India initiatives. And these initiatives have come a long way. And in the recently concluded war with Pakistan, you could see that indigenously developed things, and there are many startups have played a very big role. One of the groups of my underprivileged students, they have developed AR/VR technology and content almost 5 years before. All India Council for Technical Educations and the National Council of Vocational Education and Training, they're all benefiting out of those contents. And they are experimenting like anything. The school education, the experiment labs are made by this group of students. So I foresee that talent from wherever it comes, whichever group it comes, should be given very good opportunity and handholding. And there should not be any kind of bifurcation or prejudice in the process. And we have come a long way addressing these issues. And the government in India is really very open. And there is tremendous funding coming from various ministries to handhold this.
Sure. Lest, of course, we, as you say, do so and create another problem that we have to solve for in future. But all points taken, particularly regarding the broader topic of inclusivity. Unfortunately, that is all we have got time for. But I deliberately started this panel discussion with some of the solutions and the going-ons within your institutions. I think that it is well understood that universities have to be the springboards and the launch pads for a lot more entrepreneurial activity, just given the state of the economies, particularly on the African continent. And it is great to hear that there are examples in which we do have winning cases, and also there are lessons that we can learn from some of our counterparts in the Global South, most notably Gampat University. I think that the points made around this being a holistic process, such that it's not only the skills that are taught within the universities, but also there is sufficient hand-holding to develop those skills. There's sufficient access to finance where needed to scale those skills, and also there's the importance of linking these commercial entities to markets so the projects are commercially viable is a point that should be emphasized in terms of the holistic approach to university education and entrepreneurial linked activities. I do think that one also has to bear in mind that perhaps not every student is a founder, and perhaps engulfed in the entrepreneurial disciplines should be the option for those who are not necessarily founders and not necessarily job creators to their own wiring to still pursue a path that is successful within entrepreneurship, even within an organization as well. But I'd like to just in closing and in final thoughts really thank you all for contributing to this discussion. A lot more things that we could have discussed, I do know, and a lot more points that needed to be taken into account, but perhaps a conversation for a future time. I would like to, as I said, thank Anita Nall, the Chief Director for Innovation and Commercialization at the Stellenbosch University, Professor Thea van der Westhuizen is an academic leader for a high-impact community engagement and internationalization in College of Law and Management Studies at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, as well as Dr. Mahendra Sharma, Professor for the Chancellor of Gampat University. From myself, Ify Peters, it's always a pleasure to join you, of course, at the Future of Education Summit, but it is goodbye for now.